people would find ironic, a half hour into recording a dub over on this session would not be recorded properly. The original voice audio for this episode was disrupted heavily and could not be used. Well, due to this reason, I will be dubbing over it in post. In addition to this, there is a cut portion of the episode at the beginning. I have discovered a small forest I will be revisiting, and while visiting it, I will have died. Unfortunately, I will have also discovered a fact that is common between Elden Ring and Dark Souls. If an elevator is raised, it is raised. If you return to the elevator, it will not have lowered, for it has raised. Another fact that is common between these two games is that if an elevator is raised, a bottomless pit will have been left behind. I believe you can perform the math that is required for this observation. A matter that is of interest is the size of the underworld in this level, in this game. I attempted to determine the scope of the size of the underworld. Unfortunately, I was not satisfactorily able to discover the scope of it. But be thanks to a large bear like this that I had originally died. Of interest is the fact that the bear did not aggro me. Its claw sharpening was very important. How else is it going to maul enemies? At this point, we have then discovered the map sites that are scattered throughout the land. Unfortunately, we have not discovered the nature of using map sites of a correlation between map site placements and marks on the unexplored portion of the map. Due to this discovery, Sybithos became interested in collecting more map fragments. Evidently, we had by now discovered the ability to teleport between locations. It is possible that we had already known by this point, but it's possible that I have realized that this is how it works. Until the point in which we had incidentally tried to fast travel, we were not aware previously of fast travel available in this game. We thought the horse would be the only means to fast travel. Fast travel by horse would have only consisted of moving very fast to travel by horse. It is odd that this is not what people mean when they say fast travel. A term such as instant travel would be more important, more indicative. Unfortunately, I will be searching in vain. Considering the few features that are provided for the map, it is, I imagine you can tell what the map markers for map sites are. Sybithos is somewhat apprehensive about the value of fast travel. Our intentions are to explore the regions effectively. While yes, the travel would be a little empty, it is a beautiful game world and we do not want to spoil the experience of it by skipping over it. Despite this, we frequently use the fast travel. It appears as though Sybithos has a tendency to give in to impulses. That is a site of ruins, not a map. I remembered a tall structure on one of the islands in the poison swamp. However, apparently it was not a map site of any kind. It was just a valuable item that could be acquired.
Hello. How nice of you to please.
Something that will be brought up much later is that Sybithos feels obligated to buy from the store when we encounter the shopkeepers. Besides that, we knew that we would find value in acquiring the arrows and bolts. If you recall from the initial journey, Sybithos seeks a boat in order to attack the tree sentinel. Although we have long since resolved the tree sentinel matter to our satisfaction, I will not inform you yet on whether the boat comes into play. Supposedly, warriors will put their sword into the ground at the site of which a comrade is buried. I wonder if the scarlet rot had caused many such burials at sites such as that. This dock is not a map. We did not need to use time on it. It was not a map. To return to the earlier subject, regarding elevators, the reason we had difficulties regarding the beginning of this episode is that because we had raised the elevator after dying and fallen into the pit, we had lost many souls. As a result of that, we ended up taking the time to harvest the amount of souls that would be equal to the amount we had lost. Not much of the content at that point has happened. It was just discovering the forest that included the large bears. I would be revisiting the forest eventually, and therefore what was covered would be a little redundant. Perhaps it would be worthwhile to have continued to have provided that portion of episode anyways. However, this episode is still currently an hour long. Sybithos wishes to retain approximately an hour, give or take a few minutes, on episodes. The search for the map is overriding the search for a bow. Sybithos wondered if a bow or map could be found in the object in the building in the distance. At the time, I remembered that I had seen a structure that looked as though the one that provided our prior map fragment. We wanted to locate the area which we remembered. That could be why I had no interest in exploring that site in the distance. I had not gone there before, therefore there would be no way that it provided the map fragment which I sought. This giant enemy is not on the map, and therefore my interest of encountering it was limited. Unlike the dog, I had realized that my time could be effectively spent looking for the map rather than attacking the giant, which is not a map and would not provide a map by being defeated. That is a site of lost grace, but unfortunately it is still not a map. This is unacceptable. There are a great many things that have happened in this area, that are present in this area. None of them are maps, therefore they are beyond my current objectives. I do not believe we had yet made the connection that the large plant enemies provide the raining attacks. Our inefficiency in dealing with this dog is disappointing. I believe we had much improved since this point of the game. While that may seem like a non-statement due to the obvious nature of the obvious relationship between continual playing of a game and the improvement of performance within a game, not all performance transfers over to new altars. This is probably something you have already noticed, but I will mention it just in case you have not. The ability for new altars to play this game, picking up with most of the skill that was left off, is valuable. Unfortunately, Vicresa was not able to utilize the knowledge of being able to perform as a mage in this game. Vicresa is not fond of mages and other users of similar powers. At least her interests are limited regarding them, but magic users in particular seem to be a sore spot. Of all attacks, those poison clouds are the most easily dodged. It is perhaps because players are anticipated to be experienced with the game and dealing with projectiles that the punishment for failing to dodge that projectile is severe. I forgot if I had mentioned that I had interest with the swamp regarding that we have observed something like a tall structure. It is not a structure which provides a map, but it provides loot. Since that loot was not a map, however, it would not have been good use of my time to have acquired it. While the map cannot be effectively used as a bow, the fact of acquiring a map would be valuable for the long-term gains of the system. It was likely at this point that I recalled that the map was at a roadside. That is a dragon, not a map. It is of no interest as a result. I recall offhandedly commenting that several things were not maps, and therefore not of my interests. I highly agree with my past self. They were not maps, therefore they could not provide what I need. It would be ideal if any of the things that are not maps were instead bows. Sybithos was excited to have acquired the map at this point. Unfortunately, we still did not understand the correlation between map sites and the display of the map's unexplored portions. Sybithos hoped to be able to visit the structure that was pointed out in order to acquire a bow. After acquiring the map that we knew we had seen, it had become important in order to acquire the bow that we would use for the tree sentinel. At this point, we were given a tip by a friend that a bow could be found at a beach, as well as one other location that we would eventually resort to. I believe that bear was attacking me because it was jealous that I wasn't interested in it. If it was a bow, I would have become interested in it. As bears are natural hunters, it would be amazing if they would have amazing and appropriate if they had bows on their trop table in order to symbolize their role in nature. If it does not make sense, we could always duct tape a bow to the forepaw of a bear. Bears are also known for their foraging. We should likewise duct tape a scythe to their forepaw. Dual wielding weapons is a thing. We should not be too worried. Bears are also known for their hibernation. A pillow should be tied to their head. A bear should be able to become comfortable while they hibernate. A pillow tied to the head of a bear would potentially provide it the ability to rest its head comfortably in its cave. The pillow being tied to the top of a head would be able to provide it some shelter from snow that may fall while it goes out foraging during its hibernation. I do not know if you are aware of this, but bears do occasionally wake up during their hibernation phase in order to acquire food. However, there are two major problems with this process. One, they will not have a pillow when they return to hibernation. Two, sustenance is not a bow, unless if you eat those. However, if you eat those, that will provide another problem. Normally, if you eat a bow, you will not have a bow. There is a very common phrase to be brought up right now. You cannot eat your bow and have it too. I found that death relatively ideal. While it is unfortunate to have died, it was also positioned much closer to the site of grace. I believe this forest type was called a lesser elk tree. We still do not know the nature of that type of site. I believe at this point I had realized that there is a beach in the south end, and therefore it is potentially the beach that would contain the bow. However, I was greatly mistaken due to one detail. The bow that we were supposed to be able to find on a beach would have been found on a beach near the start. This is a significant distance from the starting location, and therefore it was unlikely to have ever been, well, what could have potentially been met. I did not find bear meat to be nearly as promising as a good bow drop. Please feel free to leave comments regarding what type of bows you think bears would use. Sybithos is always interested in reading your comments. And also, we ought to build on the whole headcanon of bow hunting that bears perform. A bear would likely be very good marksman. It has good strength, therefore it would be able to draw arrows very effectively. I imagine bears have sufficient dexterity in order to properly use the bow and hold it steady and aim it properly. The tall structure that we saw on that hill end was one that we mistook as a map site. This is also where we have discovered there are enemies that will revive if you destroy them. However, the enemy's revived state and its weapon-like are not bows. Our interest was as a result limited. It was considered that this trip would be functionally meaningless if we did not acquire a bow. While we recognize the usefulness of acquiring map fragments, we did not consider it a relevant objective, considering that map fragments cannot be used as bows. However, if that was possible, do you believe that the map fragments' arrows would potentially have a great way of finding its mark? I hope you appreciated my humor. I apologize for the background noise. The room is currently hot and I had a fan. I did not realize that it was, causing background noise. Normally we would have a filter on this input. I hope that this has made the session more satisfactory to listen to. I apologize for the inconvenience of background noise, but hopefully this is an improvement. It was at this point I realized I was at the wrong beach. However, I probably should have searched it more. It was fortunate that we were able to arrive at our destination. However, we would realize that although a bow was shot at intruders, that we would likely not be able to pick up the bow that was being used to shoot intruders. It would also be dangerous to approach the castle. What we would not realize for a time yet is that a ballista was being used, not an arrow. Not a bow and arrow. I suspect that most altars would be devastated to realize that the bow would not be, that a ballista cannot be picked up as a bow to travel with. Fortunately, I am not one of those altars. It was at this point that I realized I should prioritize my return home. We wish to travel over foot in order to find the way to home. Unfortunately, it's possible I will have to cut certain portions of audio due to the blowing noises that were not being filtered out. I will try to find the spots where the noise should have been particularly problematic and check the audio. This horse enemy did not deserve our time. The horse enemy is not a bow and will likely not drop a bow. Therefore, while it is good practice for the treatment sentinel, it is not that which I seek. Then again, with the failure of dodging effectively, perhaps it was necessary nonetheless. It is quite the contrast to see how much health and FP that my character would have at this point compared to the point in which we are currently at. I had at the time learned of an observation. While the movements of that horse enemy would be decent practice for the tree sentinel, it would be much more evasive than one. So fighting back was less effectively learned by fighting that enemy. I desired to have that horse. We would have potentially gone on many adventures. The horse would probably not survive long. Sybithos has a proclivity to dying. However, they would be many grand adventures. Horse and me. We could have code names. Like... Unfortunately, the only name that I could think of to act as a horse code name is Glue. I believe this may be offensive. One of the biggest challenges in a long journey is the inevitable loss of resources. To that extent, I attempted to integrate swordplay in my performance. Next concedes that it would be a matter of personal taste. I interpret that as, well, I would need to find a horse that is into gallows hammer. From this point on, there would be more horses. There are in fact a lot of horses in Lingard when you think about it. We have encountered 1, 2, 3. I cannot think of anything besides this horse, the horse on the road before, and the tree sentinel. as though my horsing around had cost me my life. The choice of metaphor was highly ironic, I believe. I have also decided to keep in mind that the horse had kicked me when it killed me. Holding a grudge is not good use of your time normally. However, at the same time you can hold a grudge. Some would consider that valuable in itself. I have made note of the dung beetle that was there. I would highly recommend to anyone who is playing this game to not skip over destroying those dung beetles. They are valuable targets. Unfortunately, I can assure you that those dung beetles do not have maps. I had potentially just killed Nyx by providing commentary in his DMs. I had noted the dung beetle in which we had likely skipped here. That provided a notification which will have gotten Nyx killed on his own gameplay. I'm sorry to Nyx who had lost 37,000 runes as a result of my shenanigans. Although I must wonder if how many runes I get for destroying a Infernix dragon. Dragons usually would drop runes, I would assume. I will have to find a time in which I could make it up to Nyx in the future regarding his rune incident, since it is my fault. There are two goals which are currently important to me at this time: finding a map and finding a bow. You may be unsurprised that those are my two objectives. Something about the fact that they have been my two objectives for a while now.
You there? Could you help us out, Cully?
I became very confused when I could not locate the source of the voice.
You? Yeah, you there? Stop pretending you can't
It
see
is easiest to
me.
pretend you cannot see someone if you cannot actually see them.
Why won't
Do not
anyone
worry,
look
I am
me in the
currently
eye?
looking at you in the eye.
I'm not that ugly, am I?
However, I believe humans would find you conventionally unattractive, Mr. Person who is currently reaching out to me. No offense.
Oi! You
Attraction is
there.
relative.
Could you
You are
help
probably
us
very
out, Cully?
attractive for those of your current species.
You? Yeah, you there. Stop pretending
confusion
you can't
continues.
see me. Why won't anyone look me in the eye? I'm not that ugly, am I?
I am not one to abandon someone in their hour of need.
Oi! You
At
there.
least I do not believe
Could
I
you
am.
help us out, Cully?
At the least, it is currently how I was behaving.
You? Yeah, you there. Stop pretending
It
you
was
can't
at this
see
point I had to
me.
realize that was the tree that is talking. It is a very nice tree. I am currently looking at
Why
you.
won't anyone look me in the eye? I'm not that ugly, am I?
Unfortunately, I could not determine how to interact with this individual. I am not
What'd you
certain
go
how
do that
jumping at
for?
someone would be harmful.
Oh, yes.
In hindsight, after seeing
remember.
that, I can
Some
realize how
clod
jumping at
turned
someone
me into a
can be
tree.
harmful.
You were just breaking the spell, weren't you? Thank you. The name's Bok. I was pushed out of the cave. Told not to come back.
These are very unfortunate
Not ever.
circumstances
Then I ended up as
for
a
this
tree.
individual.
Lucky you came along, really. Oh, what a shame. When they threw me out of the cave, they took everything I owned. And so this is all I have to express my thanks. I hope you can forgive me. Or, well, if you can afford to wait for a while, I could sneak back into the cave and bring back something of actual value. Then I'd be of some real
Well, I would
use
have
to
been
you,
thankful.
I reckon.
I did not wish for him to risk his life.
Right.
Unfortunately,
But
I had
need
no
a
choice in
moment.
telling him that.
I'm frightened. My knees start knocking, just thinking about that god-awful cave on the shore. Right. But
Now that I am thinking about it, although I would not go out my way to call him attractive, I would also not say that he's unattractive after all. He did look very nice as a tree, but is a very different aesthetic than what he intended by being called ugly. It appears as though bone darts are not effective to fight with. Who knew? I found the damage numbers for uh that were tested for regarding the bone dart item. These numbers do not feel impressive to me. Mhm. This is a very nice roadside. I felt as though it was violation of the intended way of performing the run to have used the Site of Grace, which I have used. However, 24,533 runes are a lot to lose. I was not exactly interested in losing all of those just to obey a thematic spirit. It is especially true that I would have gone all the way in order to harvest those 24,815 runes. It was very unfortunate, and when I have discovered that the man was no longer there. He was dressed nicely. He was also rather kind. It as though I had lost a new friend. I wish to adventure with this horse as well. I intended to recharge my resources at this site of Lost Grace. I was caught off guard to have had a cutscene. That is a nice
Greetings,
rope.
traveler from beyond the fog. I am Melina.
Character introduced.
I offer you an accord.
The tattoo over the left eye is
Have you
particularly
heard
striking.
of the Finger Maidens? They serve the two fingers, offering guidance and aid to the tarnished. But you, I am afraid, are maidenless. I can play the role of maiden.
It is nice for people to help each other out.
Turning runes into strength to aid you in your search for the Elden Ring. You need only take me with you to the foot of the Erd Tree.
I had no reason to refuse the request that she was making. However, I did
understand.
have reason to refuse the
I'm
fact
asking
that
you
she
to put
wanted me
faith
to
in
progress
but
the
a
story
stranger. Yet
before I
I'm
killed the
certain that
tree
we can
sentinel.
reach an understanding. Summon me by grace, if you should reconsider.
At this point, the tree sentinel had become a highly critical target. I was about to say I do not remember why I passed time. Then I remembered. It was in hopes of my new friend returning. Let us see if my new friend is there. My new friend is not there. It is very sad. The time searching for this new friend would be in futility. Perhaps he turned into an animal. Hence, he did not get turned into an animal. This is fortunate because it would be highly confusing. I am pretty sure he qualified as an animal already. So to be turned into an animal when you are already an animal is a highly redundant event. The terror that is involved in baleful polymorph is very confusing considering the fears of being turned into an animal. While there is a worthwhile and understanding fear in regards to what the victim is turned into, the fact that they were turned into an animal is highly uninteresting considering the fact of what they already were. I suppose it would be terrible if a Warforged was turned into one. I'm now curious about the compatibility of baleful polymorph type spells on Warforged. I'm now additionally curious on what Warforged are called in Pathfinder, as Warforged is the Dungeons and Dragons term for that species. I call them a species for lack of a better term. But for news and vigor, I was hoping to find a bow. While I was not surprised at the dog, I continue to be incompetent at dealing with dogs. It would be potentially interesting to see us revisit these earlier areas with a new save file to compare our performance. That turtle will not drop a bow. I do not agree with my actions in the past. I think at this point I was again hoping to find a bow from the beach. Actually, I may have been trying to get back home. It's hard to say. Both objectives were quite important. At this point, I felt as though I had difficulty returning properly. I was intending to use the pathway that I first used when I had visited the ruins. I remember my disapproval at this point. That flying dragon Akil is not a bow. and that he is not a map. Dragons are many things. A map or GPS system is not one of them. Here is some food for thought. Do you believe that perhaps GPS system will be shortened to GPSS? If you believe so, do you suppose that people will start calling it a GPSS system? Do you think that people will start calling them GPSSS? Do you think people even use the term now that they use a GPS that is embedded into their phone software? I am interested in making full use of my phone's GPSSS system. Even someone like Itha would not be lost with a GPSSS system. I'm not sure if there is any individual who could be lost if they would have a GPSSS system on their phone. Perhaps that is why it's popular for phones to have a GPSSS system. I think I am done talking about the GPSSS system features and their value. Perhaps in the future I will find the time to talk about GPSSSS system. I hope I am performing a shit-eating brand effectively towards Nyx. Nyx is not amused at the GPS. I was told to stop while I'm ahead. I became curious at the fact that these enemies did not appear interested in attacking. Occasionally we have encountered enemies that do not seem to be interested in fighting. However, when a torch was waved, I felt intimidated and attacked. There were 4 of them and 1 of me. That is my excuse. I was not interested in being ambushed. I wanted to see if there were anything that, if there was any objects that were, if there were any objects that were forgotten when we were whisked away, unfortunately. Perhaps there is a big wall down here. Unfortunately, I will not have checked for a fake wall. While there is potentially value in determining what was, if the real loot was in that chest by now, I was not interested in taking my chances. It was a very short road to return to the start of the game at this point, and I did not wish to lose my progress. Resources were running thin anyways. I would surely die if I were to have attempted to engage. I think I had made a mistake with that skull. Wait, no, that was probably for the dragon. While my resources were running thin, I did not feel as though I had much of a choice regarding dealing with this one enemy. It was ironic that now that I had got so close to the home point that I would not be able to reach it due to the wall. It was a subject of confusion, especially since I had successfully gotten to this area without dealing with any drops down cliff sides. However, I would need to engage with the legendary fight, a fight with Crab, the fate of all future life. Considering that the Crab is a superior life form, it was inevitable that I have lost. It was coming near the end of time, and I had an agenda with a crab, one that I did not wish to have a dragon interfere with. Correction, one that I did not wish to have that dragon interfere with. We are always happy to have Infernix interfere with all of our agendas. It adds flavor to life. Through walkie pathing and individual level skill, I have proven myself superior to the superior crab. If that marker is still here, I really should adjust it. I believe this is the point in which I acknowledged that considering I have traveled from this location to the spot that I had arrived to, that I am only delaying progress of the game. From here I would begin to engage with my goals that I had in this playthrough. Admittedly, these would be goals that I have so far floundered at. I had found 2 map fragments, so perhaps not so severely. It is possible that from here, that I was only clearing out particular things and seeing what else last moment things I could look into. I do not believe I was up to anything further for the remaining few minutes. I hope you had enjoyed my journey and my post-recording commentary. Not understanding how to use a sacrificial twig, I had pocketed it into my chest, hopefully not accidentally wasting it on a frivolous rune drop. Oh, now would be the time. I would see what my journey out into the world had brought me in skill. It had brought me the ability to shoot my own spell at my own face. I have learned nothing. This is a good start. Do you think that it is possible that I will destroy this tree sentinel? The tree sentinel is a foe who has plagued us throughout this playthrough. As you can see, he continues to plague me. Oh well. Unfortunately, the failure of that attempt seals this session as ending. I believe that it would be seen as wonderful if we could have defeated the tree sentinel upon arrival. Unfortunately, the tree sentinel would not make it that easy. I hope everyone has a good night, and I apologize for the delays on this recording.